Hey, girl.
Hey there, hey.
Hey, neighbors. Hey, Boston. How you doing? I said, hey, Boston. I know you ain't playing with me. We out here fighting for our lives. We're going to have a good time tonight. Make some noise. Oh. First of all, we are here with my ace boomku, Maggie Smith. That's for the millennials. I heard like people were like, yes, I too was born in the 80s. No, I'm so excited to celebrate dear writer and to celebrate Maggie herself. You're right, creativity is a birthright. It is oxygen. It is a gift that we must give to ourselves and each other. And so I'm really excited we're going to hear about the book. We're going to hear a little poetry here and there from the two of us, but also, for real, your phones. You know, this is 21st century life, girlies, okay? So we are going to be taking questions throughout this conversation, and I'm going to work to weave it into the conversation. So when the spirit moves you, say amen and, send us a little note, okay? I'll get it here on my cute little iPad. But Maggie, first of all, what's it feel like to be, I gotta use my public radio voice.
Oh no.
Before Elon takes it away. Oh, no. Gotta earn it. What's it feel like to be a bad bitch? Because you are.
I have to say, you probably saw, because I posted it on my Instagram, my daughter's birthday card to me.
Oh, right.
My 16-year-old daughter's birthday card for my 48th birthday in February said that I was a bad bitch on it.
The children know. The children know.
It feels pretty good.
As it should.
I have to say.
It feels correct.
It feels correct. It feels correct to be here with you.
It feels so good to be here with you. We became friends when I was living in Columbus, Ohio for about 5 years until I moved here. This is home now.
I'm not bitter.
She was so mad. But I will always have a home as long as we get to have these conversations.
For sure.
With you. So, but I did want to, you're going to read a little bit, but before you start that, this book, Dear Writer, it's a craft book. It's about the writing life. It has writing prompts. As a teacher, I'm like, thank you for all of the lists of books, and poems for recommendation to I love artists who point us to other artists.
Yeah.
That's a good sign, that tells me, first of all, I'm not interacting with a straight white man. Because they never do that. They never do. You're right. They're like, oh, I exist fully formed from Zeus's thigh. And you're like, you've never had a mentor or a colleague in your life.
We told you it was going to be fun.
So I love that, we're doing this a People's Project. You bring so many different mentors and colleagues and peers into the room. But I guess I wanted to ask you, writing a craft book where, it's a step up moment in a writer's career, right?
Yeah.
You're stepping outside of the poetry and the essays and saying, let's talk about the forms themselves. When did you, or how did you know you were ready to kind of take this step?
Oh, that's such a good question. I couldn't have written this book in my 20s while I was figuring it out. I couldn't have written it in my 30s because I had small children and I had no time. And I think, it just occurred to me recently that February of this year marks the 20th anniversary of my first book being published. So my first book of poems came out in 2005. And I think having 2 decades of writing and teaching and these kinds of conversations,
living
right?
and
living and group texts with writers and Q&As after events and dinners after things.
We do be talking about y'all in the group chat.
We are talking about you in the group chat. I have not removed him from the Columbus, Ohio writers group chat because it feels too final.
They're like, let's meet for cocktails. And I'm like, yeah, let's meet.
And I'm like, but not, and then in parentheses, but not Saeed, but I'll see you soon. But I can't remove you. It just feels like I can't remove you. But yeah, I think I needed to get enough time and experience under my belt to feel like I had something to offer to other people. And I spend so much of my time with students, with mentees, with other writers, passing along advice that my mentors gave me. And so in a way, this book is a compilation, a kind of greatest hits of all of the things that I've sort of tried, maybe failed at, and then oh, this worked for me, so maybe it will work for you. But it's also, I think, the best of what I was given that I would really like to have and be able to pass on to somebody else who wasn't in the class with X teacher or wasn't at that dinner at AWP when the person said the brilliant thing. And if it's all far-flung and scattered, it's not as useful.
I love that you're identifying this book as a work of not just your insight from teaching and doing events over your incredible career, but also creative lineage. I think of ancestry a lot. Like, I've lately been learning as much about Toni Morrison from rereading jazz for the fourth time as I am from reading about her work editing Toni Cade Bambara's books, like that. And again, that's why I think it's so important to point, as you say, to the inspirations, to the past students and teachers. Well, let's get into it. I want you to read a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, let's get into this gig.
All right, we're going to read a little bit.
Okay, let's clap her on the way to the podium. Some applause for the dress, please.
Y'all, I can't see. I'm so sorry. Like, you've had a long enough career to write a craft book when you need readers to read from your craft book. That's when you know. So this book, as Kate mentioned, is divided into 10 sections. 10, I think of them as like if creativity were a recipe, these 10 things are the ingredients in the secret sauce. And so I'm going to read the pep talk letter for the section on surprise, and then a poem from a craft essay from that section. Surprise. Dear writer, I've been thinking about the ways we surprise ourselves, about the human capacity for growth and change, about how elastic our lives are and how they can contain anything, even things that don't seem possible. You might fall in love again after having your heart broken. You might begin to run or roller skate or kayak or rock climb after years of being the least active person you know. You might, and probably will, write another poem or story or essay after thinking your last poem or story or essay was the last one. Don't worry, it wasn't your last. There will be another and another and another. They may surprise you when they arrive, with their timing or their tone or what they have to say. I hope they do. As Carol Maso wrote, despite all efforts to tame it, manage it, control it, outsmart it, language resists your best efforts. Language is still a bunch of sturdy, glittering charms in the astonished hand. I think surprise is the secret to every good piece of writing. I know good is subjective, so I'll qualify that. Surprise is the secret to every piece of writing I most admire and enjoy. Mercifully, many parts of the secret sauce stay secret to us. We don't know exactly where the ideas come from, and we don't know where they're going. The creation doesn't care about your plans or intentions. It's just trying to be born. It doesn't have an agenda. The quickest way to kill a thing is to think you know what it will be, what it's capable of, what its limitations are. I enter a piece of writing with questions and try to let the language guide me. There's no outline, no map, no blueprint. The structure is built in real time as the poem unfolds. That's not a bug, it's a feature. In The Art of Restlessness, Dean Young wrote, at every moment, the poet must be ready to abandon any prior intention and welcome expectation of what the poem is beginning to signal. More than intending, the poet attends. If we understood everything about the creative process, if we had it all figured out when we began, it probably wouldn't be as thrilling. The truth is, the surprise is both part of the challenge and part of the fun for writers and for readers. We are here to risk, to find new territory. We have to be very careful not to censor ourselves when we draft, not to impose order on the piece too early. So what if you've always written poems in meter? So what if all your stories are in first person? So what if you've never written a lyric essay, or if you've only written essays? No one is born excelling at anything. Most babies aren't even particularly good at the basics, eating and sleeping. Don't worry too much about the form as you get the raw material down. That would be like making a container at the same time as trying to fill it. I've been thinking about how our work and our lives can stretch and change shape to accommodate more than we might think. About how writing and living both require imagination. We can't change the past, but the rest is up for grabs. We get to make it up. We get to decide today, tomorrow, and on what we will try, do, and be. On the page and off, we get to surprise ourselves. And then each of those little letters is followed by 3 craft essays and then some exercises and things for further reading. And so in the craft essay on imperfection, which I think we all need, because newsflash, we are all imperfect, I write a little bit about how sometimes the surprise when you're writing is that you make a mistake, a technical mistake, and actually it's not a mistake at all. Sometimes we make a mistake but decide to keep it, and in fact call attention to it, leaning into the mistakes like mishearings, misreadings, misunderstandings, even typos, filling the breaks with gold like kintsugi and broken pottery. The error, if we may call it an error, leads to new insights, layers of meaning, or exciting associative leaps that make the poem more of itself, not less than. The mistake is a gift. The break or breakdown allows for a breakthrough. My poem Written Deer from Goldenrod is one example. I was reading Szymborska when I came across this line: "Why does this written doe bound through these written woods?" The question made me want to push further into the setting, the written woods, and to consider what it means to both create and experience, or to write and read, a place. I draft all of my poems longhand, often writing very quickly in my messy half-print, half-cursive handwriting. And world and word were almost indistinguishable. As the poem came into focus, this conflation made its way into the poem's argument. I could have left the error out of the poem, but it led me to consider what these two things have in common: the word and the world. Either one could be erased. That stark realization felt important to me, so it's in the poem. And this is the poem, Written Deer. And the epigraph from Szymborska is, "Why does this written doe bound through these written woods?" My handwriting is all over these woods. No, my handwriting is these woods, each tree a half-print, half-cursive scrawl, each loop a limb. My house is somewhere here, and I have scribbled myself inside it. What is home but a book we write, then read again and again, each time dog-earing different pages? In the morning, I wake in time to pencil the sun high. How fragile it is, the world. I almost wrote the word, but caught myself. Either one could be erased. In these written woods, branches smudge around me whenever I take a deep breath. Still, written fawns lie in the written sunlight that dapples their backs. What is home but a passage I'm writing and underlining every time I read it? Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so lightning round, some questions. How long did you work on that poem? Do you remember?
How long did I work on that poem?
How long were you
How many
in those
drafts?
woods? Yeah.
You know, I'd have to look at the Word docs because I save all of my drafts. I number them.
This is exactly the kind of stuff I'm getting into.
Yeah, I number them. So I write a first draft on a legal pad, in part because
you said you write longhand.
I write longhand. I actually don't know how to type.
Okay.
I've never learned how. I only use my index fingers. Yes, I've written a memoir and this book with these two workhorse fingers. These guys just lay around drinking Mai Tais.
Can I tell you something? Gen X has no survival instincts whatsoever. The fuck you mean you like? Okay, go on.
I never learned.
Okay, so when you say so.
That's real though, and you know what? I'm going to confess something.
You're a good friend, and I this is me.
I'm going to confess something. I am not so old. I mean, okay, so I'm of the age where I was no longer expected to be a secretary.
Y'all were taking typing classes.
No, there was not typing. However, I am of the age where we had keyboarding.
I had keyboarding class.
Well, I cheated.
Were you just doing Oregon Trail?
No, so I never played Oregon Trail, but
and now look at us, living it. Fucking living it. Dysenteries and
That's
music.
right.
Anyway, go on.
No, I'm
cool.
I am in the Conestoga wagon, friends.
Oh my God.
No, I just remember they put like a little board over your hands and you would have to type with a wooden board that went over that you couldn't see. Yeah. But the teacher would just circulate.
Okay.
So as soon as the teacher would walk to the other side of the room, I'd scooch the board back and do the thing and then scooch the board back.
We had it was like a little curtain, like a little fabric.
You know, I swear, I think it's well, I think I cheated in Spanish too, if I'm being honest, and I can't speak Spanish. Okay. So I think the lesson here is the one class.
You became a writer. I mean,
exactly.
You're doing quite well.
But the one class.
It's not Dear Typer.
It's not. Thank you. The one class I really should have learned how to. Yeah,
this is incredible.
It would have done this. So yes, I write longhand first because my brain works at the speed of my hand, not at the speed of these two fingers. And then eventually, when the poem starts to find a form, when I start to want to monkey around with line breaks, I find myself drawing slashes in my messy,
through the words, through the
like where the line break should be. So I'll just write it all as prose, and then I can start to see, like, if I'm reading it aloud, oh, I want to take a breath there. Oh, that line is that. Word, like line ending, the word ending there, would be a kind of suspenseful double entendre. So I want to end there.
Okay.
So once I start kind of messing with it on the page, it's time to get out my laptop.
Yeah.
Warm these little guys up. Come on, buddies. And then we get in there.
This is so funny.
It's real.
Wow.
I mean, my children can type, and they see me doing it.
I thought you would be like, Brett, get in here.
No, I'm going to start.
It's time.
He needs some allowance. I might just have him be my personal assistant.
No, it's like...
He's 12.
Oh, this is incredible. I mean, I will say it's interesting. Earlier in my writing process, I would write poems. I would write it on the back of graded student work.
Oh,
because it made me feel comfortable throwing it away.
That's real.
Like notebooks felt too and
precious.
And Rigoberto, and too fancy, and Rigoberto Gonzalez, my thesis advisor, he was right. He was like, and the problem with the computers, it makes it look too polished too soon.
It's that Garamond problem.
And girl, I'm in my Calibri phase right now, but that's true. Yeah, I used to live for Garamond.
It's true. You put your grocery list in Garamond.
And so like writing in longhand on the back of old student work, it would slow me down. I wouldn't feel too precious. And then, once I had enough, then I would take it to the computer.
It's legal pad for me.
Okay, yeah.
Because it's not a notebook, right? I mean, it just looks like a mess. And honestly,
do you try to keep it after? Do you have a bunch of yellow?
Honestly, I have stacks of legal pads taller than me.
You should keep them.
But it's like notes from a freelance meeting, notes from a marketing meeting for a book, 3 pages of poems, a page of lists. I don't know where anything is. Like, whoever has my papers at the end of my life has a task.
I mean, I'm doing a lot of archival research now, and it's extraordinary reading through, like, Polly Murray's papers are at Harvard, and it's the things that we now think are boring are actually, it's really interesting to read. Like, I didn't know, like 1930s Polly Murray, you would have to, people still do this, like paying to submit to literary magazines.
Yeah,
and like a lot of money, it's I don't know. There's more value in those yellow lingo pads than you think. But part of the reason I asked this is because I'm nosy, but also because so the thing about teaching craft, right, is that we have to deal with the canon. We have to deal with the rules, which is to say to think of masculinity and white supremacy and how much that has informed the way we teach art. There's a right way. That's why, remember I said, like straight white men, like not even pointing to mentors and peers because they want to protect, they want to be a fully formed
It's self-contained.
genius. Yes. And so with craft books, I think there's a trap where it becomes, obey me. And so one thing I love about this book, you say, Dear Right, first of all, the letters, you're engaging us. I mean, that beautiful letter is as much about life as it is, or as much about craft as it is about the surprise of life, But also you bow towards the reader in this book in ways, and we can go ahead and put it up. You include some of your notes and drafts.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that beautiful?
That's in the book.
I love this. So can you...
There's my handwriting.
I love it. And it's pretty good.
No. But I can read it.
Well, tell us what's going. Because first of all, isn't this cool? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you put yourself on the same plane with the reader.
This is in the book. I asked Jenny. I asked our shared editor. I said, can I actually scan a spread of one of my notebooks? And this is a notebook. You can see the dots.
Oh gosh, and I can see it right here.
Yeah.
I'm writing. So one question. So how dark the beginning of a new day? Is that where this started for you?
Yeah. How dark the beginning of a new day is. Just thinking that was the phrase that started it for me. And I just thought, okay, how do I riff on that? And so I ended up playing with these phrases from the Bible that I remembered from Sunday school. And then I thought about
in the beginning there was light. Yeah.
Yep. Good light. And then I thought about and I call bullshit. Didn't end up in the poem. A lot of this doesn't end up in the poem. Right. The bottom, the good dark, made me think of James Wright, the book The Branch Will Not Break. And I think he uses the words good and dark like so many times in that book. And it's kind of weirdly permission giving. Like actually maybe every adjective doesn't need to be like multisyllabic.
Right. Oh, I think those words have to be earned.
Right?
Yeah.
Like maybe sometimes the flatter, more humble word is the right word.
I also like simple language because I think it takes us to the register of the mythic and the ancient. Something funny about James, I'm just really interested in how we can teach and welcome people into poetry. James Wright and his son Franz Wright are the only father and son to have ever won the Pulitzer Prize, both for poetry. And Franz Wright said that when he was a little boy, he was like a 14 or something, he sat down in an orchard and it was like a lightning strike moment, wrote a poem really furiously. Obviously, he really wants to please his dad. And he goes to his father, and James Wright says something like, "Congratulations, you're a poet now. Welcome to hell." So all this to say, thank you for not writing that way. I just think it's just incredible, the ways in which so many artists, seemingly, I think it's out of insecurity. They're like, oh, unless you're tortured, unless you're setting yourself on fire, or you could never understand. They're so afraid that if they show their work, it will somehow diminish them. But I am only more, and we're going to look at the actual poem.
Oh, yeah.
I'm in awe of the decisions you made here.
That's so kind.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, there's two things. One is, I don't actually know any tortured artists.
I know some.
Do you?
I know some. Oh, yeah,
maybe
yeah.
I've just been real
I'm not
careful.
friends with them.
Okay, that's... There's
I'm
that.
aware of them.
Someone asked me about that, and I said, maybe I'm just so Midwestern, but I don't know any. Like the people that I know, and maybe it's the people that I've chosen to surround myself with, are people who create joyfully, and that doesn't mean that their work always is about joy. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the work, frankly, often the work is about grief and loss. Because that's the material, right?
This is literally a dark poem that finds the light in it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But I just think the people that I know who make art, and I'm not just talking writers, they're not tortured people. They're people who are doing this thing because they've got something inside them that's driving them to pull something out, hold it up to the light, and then have the courage to hand it to somebody else. It might only be one other person that they hand it to. or it might be a lot of people that they hand it to. But I don't actually know that you can, I mean, I guess it's debatable. I don't know that you can be tortured and have a long creative life.
That's it. It's not sustainable.
It's not tenable.
I think you can, and I mean, just look at culture, pop culture. I think you can. Sometimes lightning strikes, right? Sometimes there's a dramatic experience and, you encapsulate it in art and it becomes the song, the album, the book, the opera.
And then what?
But the question of, yes, the sustainability. Yeah. And now I think is so important, not just the work, but can we interact with people in a way, as you feel, like we want people to, and you say this in the book, like I'm trying to get you to fall in love with poetry.
Yeah, I'm not even being sneaky about it. Like it's not even my ulterior motive. Yeah. It's like my real motive.
You're like, you can write a prose poem if that feels. You're like, it might be the gateway drug.
But whatever. No, it's so true. I do love a gateway drug, but I also think like, as art, I think
it's legal here.
It's fine. I think like what
poetry.
if we? Yeah, poetry is legal here. Yes, for now.
Woo! See, y'all thought I was going to be the wild one, but we're friends for a reason. We're friends for a reason. Here.
The group texts are crazy. So what if art is hospitality? Like how do we make things that welcome people into them?
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can do that from a closed off interior tortured space. Yeah. I think that is a reaching out. That is a door opening. Like, how do we make things that are hospitable to others?
And I love that. See? Oh, that's why she's my girl. But like for real, I mean, poetry, when we really think about, poetry is an oral tradition.
Yeah.
So whether we are talking about Vikings rowing and saying, "Scald, we need a song,"
That's
you know
hot.
what I mean? Whether we are thinking of, my ancestors, I am the descendants of slaves, whether we're thinking about people working, in the sun, asking for, let's get, bringing in the hum, bringing in sound, bringing in words, even shared languages, it was always, poetry was always intended to serve the people, to honor them. It's a prayer, it's a song, I love you saying that poem, it's a home that we're underlining together. So to talk about poetry in a way that alienates people,
right,
is it's ahistorical.
No, it's a community gathering space.
Yes.
Right? I mean, that's what it is. Like, it brings people into a space. Sometimes we all get to be in the same room together. This is a gift. Mm-hmm. But if we were all reading the same poem, even if we were far flung, we would be together.
Yes. Oh, we would be together.
We would be together.
I love that. We have I love a couple of questions here. Thank you again. You can keep
People are doing this 21st century
questions.
thing. I just write things on Post-it notes and pass them up.
It's too, I'm like, girl,
Gen
I'm trying to
X.
read your handwriting. You typed it with 2 fingers.
I know.
I'm never going to let that go. Matt asks, what are you listening for when you find your line breaks?
Oh.
Yeah. And and you talk about line breaks a lot.
Yeah.
And and I love this. What tells you it should be like a couplet, like those 2 lines, as opposed to some other form. I love that.
Oh, and I talk a lot about this in the book. Like, I'm a little obsessive and persnickety about these things. Usually, so it's a combination. The line break for me is a combination of 2 things. It's the sort of unit of sound. So I'm reading it out loud and I think I want to stop and pause there. So that's like the first kind of cue to my ear that might be a good spot to stop. And then the second consideration is, well, what word is that on? Because if it's on an of, that feels like a wasted.
When people break on an of?
An
A?
I know. Okay, so
what is wrong with you?
So why is that? It's and here's like my weird. It's disgusting. It's unforgivable. So here's my thing about this. I feel like the sentence as a unit, prose writers, you get this, has a horizontal energy, right? It's pushing toward the right-hand margin of the page. The sentence just wants to go that way. That's what sentences do. And it will break when the page breaks. But it just wants to go that way. When you're writing poetry, or when you're writing verse, the poem wants to drag down the page. It has like a vertical drag, basically. So if you think about it that way, every time you break a line of a poem, it's like torque. Like you're wrenching the energy that is pushing across, and you're breaking it and wrenching it down. And so wherever you're harnessing that energy, to me, should be a meaningful word, something that feels kind of metaphorically freighted, that feels suspenseful, that maybe you leave the reader wondering, like, okay, where's the sentence going? And they have a question that needs to be answered because maybe they don't even know the part of speech just yet because the sentence hasn't finished. So I'm always thinking about that. And that's why articles and conjunctions feel like a wasted use of the torque because
It's literally you take your foot off the gas.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, and then as far as stanza, usually for me, I love white space. You're like, we've read your memoir, we know. I love white space. It's like it's literal breathing room. It's room for people to process things. It slows things down. So if you're really taking time with the imagery and the metaphor, or if you have complicated syntax or big ideas you're stuffing into a poem, you're making it hospitable. You're doing the reader a favor by pacing it for them, like giving them spoonfuls. And so to have a couplet or a tercet, a smaller stanza that allows them to kind of take it slowly rather than rush in one block down the page, is a way to help them kind of take it all in.
I agree. I learned poet Brian Turner, he's written many books, but his first book
Brian's
was
great.
Here Bullet. He's a veteran. And he talked about the integrity of the line. And so I agree with everything she said, but I would also add, like, I want the line break to contain some truth. It may not be where the sentence is ultimately going, but I think each line, the integrity, should have some kind of like, oh, that kind of has its own music. I don't want a reader to have to read the entire sentence to be like, oh, that's beautiful. No, I want each line to have it as well as the sentence.
I love that. And sometimes you get a sort of first meaning or a first thought from the line. And then when you continue, it's cumulative.
Yeah. Or contradictory.
Or sometimes contradictory, but you get, it's sort of like, oh, there's another. It's like, looking at a painting from a different, oh, there's another view.
I love that. I love that. How do you know, and I mean, this is it ever finished? But how do you know when a poem is finished?
When I don't see things that I want to change. I mean, that's a very simple answer. But it's honestly, you get dressed in the morning and you look in the mirror. How do you know you're ready to leave the house? When you don't see things you want to fix.
I like that.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. I revise as I write. That's the other thing.
Really?
Yeah. So I, and now I do it on the computer. I used to do it longhand, but it was like I would write the first line.
Show off.
No, because it's just like Brian Turner said that when I was like in graduate school, and it was just like burned into. So I write the first line, try to write the second line, mess up, and I just draw a dash. I write the first line again, the second line, and I might be in that for so it's getting longer. So by the time I've gotten to what's in theory the last line, it's like I've probably written it like a lot of times.
That is wild.
But that's how I
write like absolute brain vomit. That's what I call it. Like I will literally write 4 pages of just free, just stream of consciousness, nothing. You would never even know it was a poem. On a legal pad, and then I go into the legal pad and I look at what just came out of me, and some of it I don't even remember writing, even though it happened over 20 minutes. Yeah. And then I think, okay, what's worth saving? Yeah. And I might circle things and then recopy it on another piece of paper. It's such a messy process.
Well, the reason I love hearing how different the process is because
there's no right way.
And I love tonight you read from surprise because that's how I protect my surprise. I noted I love she notes in the book she doesn't come up with titles until the end.
Yeah.
I usually start with the title in the first line. It may change, but I don't know where I'm going.
That is crazy.
So I get to the end and I'm like, oh shit.
I did not know that.
Because I'm just going one line at a time.
But for real, then the meaning of the title actually changes.
It does.
Because if you come up with a title that is, X, Y, Z, and then 17 lines in, you realize what the poem is doing. Your relationship to the title changes.
And then, and that's why, and I remember reading The Art of Recklessness, which she mentions by Dean Young, is a great great book. Yeah, like sometimes I have a title and it's gonna, and every student wants to do their version of 13 ways of looking at the, and then you realize, oh, I'm trying to control this too much. So it's not unusual for me to have to relinquish control. But yeah, there's a lot of surprise.
I love this.
Yeah. Oh, here's another question from my friend Caretha Mitchell,
Oh,
wonderful
hi, Caretha.
writer and professor here in Boston at Boston University. All right.
I'm like, but also, she wasn't always here.
Ooh, another friend from Ohio that moved. Okay, look, we'll talk about this later.
I know.
I'll say this to Ohio. Y'all got to get better at earning black people. Okay.
And a lot of other people
and
too.
a lot of other people too. If you want, oh girl, I feel like Olivia Pope. If you want me, earn me. Is that what she said to Fitz? Oh my God. Okay.
I love this. I hope you are having as good a time as I am right now.
It's so funny because, first of all, I'm a Sagittarius and she's an Aquarius. And so this is what happens.
It gets real.
My dear friend Isaac is an Aquarius as well, and it's very similar dynamic. Maggie's always like, okay, let's plan this, and I'm planning this. I'm like, girl, we gonna get on stage and vibe. I don't know why you're worried. It will be okay. But this is really fun because we were talking about this in the green room. You and I are both, we're working on another book together.
Yes.
I'm working on 3 other books on my own, kind of depending on like which book today you're working on.
2 other ones right now.
So a lot going on. And so you pointed out that it's not a binary, for you, what's going on. For readers, it's different. Caretha asked, if poems begin in prose on the legal pad, how do you think about the difference between prose and poetry? Because it could go in so many directions.
Honestly, for me, it's very loose. And I didn't think that way for years. I think because I only wrote poems. So I've always thought of myself as a poet. I've been writing poems since I was 13. And until, I guess, the essays that I wrote for Keep Moving, I never really published prose. And so I kind of put myself in a box and thought, well, this is what I do. And then when I started writing prose, I had this surprising realization that it's actually not different.
It's not.
It's not different for me. And I'm working on a book of fiction right now.
We can tell people now. I ain't no snitch, so I wasn't going to say. Okay.
Yeah, I'm working on fiction and poetry right now. And yes, structurally they're very different, right? One of them I'm completely making up and the other one I'm mostly not. But at the sentence level, at the sound level, at the image level, at the attention to detail level, it's really not any different.
I agree.
Attention to metaphor, attention to, the sort of breadcrumb trail that you want to put through a thing. Even with my memoir. I remember like going on tour for that book and I said, maybe y'all will laugh me out of the room, but this is the most poetic book I've ever written. It's not poetry.
I think, with poetry and memoir, I feel the only difference, the ethics. A poem and an essay, let's say, fiction's different, but a poem and an essay can certainly start in the same point. Let's say it's inspired by a memory. But as we were talking about with a poem, at some point, inevitably, there's too much story to fit into the poem.
Yeah. And
too much music to be refused. And so I just go, I'll get to the details later, and I just let the poem write. Whereas what happened. If I'm writing a personal essay, I do need to, kind of move back towards asserting like the facts and the coherence.
Sure. I think for me, it's I want everything to be a poem. It's the water that I can touch in. That's how I feel about poetry. You know what I mean?
Say more about that. The water you can touch in.
It's the thing I've written the longest. It's the only kind of writing I have any formal training in. Okay. Like I've never taken a nonfiction class. The audacity to publish a book that you know what I'm saying though. So it feels comfortable to me. It's the only thing I teach really, like on a regular basis. And so for me, if an idea shows up and agrees and will submit to be a poem, I feel comfortable because I think I know what to do with this. It won't be easy. Like no poem is easy for me to write, but I feel like, oh, this is my language, right? Like I'm moving through water I know how to move through. And when something shows up, and I try to make it a poem, but it wants to tell the backstory, and it refuses the compression. It refuses to allow itself to be a metaphor, standalone, and not drag in the sidebars. That is frustrating and exciting to me. Because I'm like, oh, I mean, maybe it's worth saying, and I can like tease this now, maybe it's worth saying that the novel I'm writing now started out as a poem that was called An Idea for a Novel I'll Never Write.
That's a great prompt.
Joke's on me.
Yeah, I could have. You should just texted me, girl.
Joke's on you, girl. But yeah, I want everything to be compressed. That is like my sweet spot. But ideas, I mean, again, like talking about surprise, the idea just wants to be born, and it wants you to get TF out of the way. And so if you are like, no, you need to be a poem, and I don't care that you want me to go do archival research, I don't care that you want me to interview this person, I don't care that you want to tell this story about your aunt and uncle, you're in the way. And you're actually hurting the work, and you're not being a good steward of the work. And so the thing is listening to the idea, loosening your white-knuckled grip on the thing and being like, what do you want to be? It's like raising a child.
Yeah.
You don't get to tell your child what to be. You are a steward of that soul in the world, and you listen. That's what you do.
Yeah, like water. Like
water.
I love that because, and I know there's, you talk about failure in the book. I tell students that failure or writer's block, which I increasingly don't, I think it's not a general
real
term that actually, I'm like, swerve. What's probably happening is you're white knuckling it, or you're trying to insist, and it's not working. And because you are so insistent on this dynamic, you are refusing to look at these other possibilities. There's a rock, there's a boulder in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
Are you going to speed toward it, or are you going to swerve? And so that is, it's there's a that's the joyful rigor that you were talking about earlier, like that we work. You and I are workaholics. We work.
We might be.
we are. We
are.
But
love
it's a joy. It's a joy. I love figuring it out. I love the sense, and you talked about this again in your reading, like the sense of possibility, and you were like, there will be another poem, there will be another essay. And this is interesting because I know you say your work tends to, as you revise, it gets tighter, smaller, the compression.
It does.
Kristen asked, do you worry that editing work as you go changes the original intent, or is that how you find the real story?
Yes and yes. I mean, and either way,
Depends.
It depends. I have definitely revised into the thing and found my way into like the
Carving
actual
into marble.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I thought I was going this way, and then through revision, I land in a completely different destination, and I think, well, I had no idea that this poem or story or essay or whatever was actually about this or was heading in this direction. But what a happy surprise. And it is also true that you can over-revise something. You can, I tell my students all the time, be very wary of polishing a thing dull.
Yes.
You can try to make something so technically good and correct and formally sound that it's dead, that it's like a American cheese slice wrapped in that little... It's not actually cheese, it's cheese food. You know what I mean?
No, I call it like you've gentrified your own work. Because that's what it's neat, but it's like, ain't no black people living there.
I know anybody living
And I want
there.
black people to live in my poems.
Yeah, no, you really can. You can over-revise. And this is part of why I save every draft. I save 1, I save 2, I save 3, because if I get to 15 and I think, I don't even know what this is anymore. Part of what reminds me, it's like going back and, you get to like 40 and you're like, life's not that fun. And then you see, that's real. And then you see pictures of yourself when you were like 28 on vacation and you're like, where's that person, right? So you go back to draft 1, 2, 3. You go back to the fun young draft and you look at the fun young draft And you know what? She's a mess, that draft. Like, it's not that you want to pull everything out of that draft. There's a lot of stuff that you revised away from that was wise, right? Like, I don't want to be 28-year-old me. But, like, there were some sparks and maybe a turn of phrase or a form or an instinct in that early draft that needs to be actually reinstated.
I love that. Oh, gosh. There's so many thoughts. I read if you listen to my podcast Vibe Check, tomorrow's episode, I read a poem, and I can't remember her name, and it's driving me crazy, and I don't have my phone, but I read a poem from a Palestinian poet, and if someone wants to look it up, the title is Intermilitary Songs. It was published in the Yale Review. If you Google that, it should pop up, because I would really like to be able to.
And then you can put it in your list.
Yeah, exactly. But at some point, she says in the poem, and it has a refrain like, I'm writing poetry. And she says at some point, like, everyone in the world needs to be silent, basically, so I can think while I'm doing, it's using this like, and I was like, oh, there is a relationship. I really believe in energy. I believe in the spirit. I believe my ancestors are with me.
I'm with you on that.
I know you do too. Yeah. And so I believe in the energy I'm putting into the work, and I believe I'm sharing it with the reader. Even if it's a difficult subject matter, I want the energy I'm putting in to be love. And so I guess, thank you, Dalia Taha. Thank you so much. There's a way in which the control and the manipulation, I'm thinking, for example, of Picasso. When I look at the way he depicts those women, I do not see love. I do not see respect. I see manipulation. He abused those images and he mangled those women instead of as he treated them. And so it's almost like you can control so much, you're bringing fascism. What is fascism, right? But an insistent, claustrophobic insistent on control. Like you can almost stitch it into the work if you're, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we need to love that 28-year-old version.
Yeah, it doesn't feel alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not alive.
That's the thing. Like to have, I think that's the thing. And your work does this for me all the time. When I read your work, and not just because I know you, because I read Prelude to Bruise, one of my favorite books of poetry, before I knew you. Right? You were not my friend when I read that book. And I read that book. I checked it out from the library.
Love.
And then I kept renewing it. And then finally I was like, I got to buy it because they want it back. I'm going to buy this book.
Oh my God.
But you know what? There's a human being in there. And that for me, and it doesn't matter what kind of art it is. It could be writing, it could be film, it could be painting, it could be anything. I want to sense a person behind it. And part of that, I think that's the hospitality too. Feeling welcomed in. The spirit
honored,
of
acknowledged.
Yes.
Yeah. And to this, a great question. We both write about other people.
Yeah.
Often you write about children. I've written about family members. And how do you decide what is yours to share and where's the line? Because on one hand, you are very transparent. You're like, here are my notes, here are the different drafts, but also.
It's tricky. I think writing about my children, sometimes we write about people who by nature do not have the ability to consent, right? It's one thing to write about an ex or to write about your mother, to write about, but if you're writing about someone who is not living or who is a minor, who cannot actually consent, you can't show them a draft or it would be unwise to say. And so using your best judgment, thinking, I do very little in life without thinking, what would it feel like to be that person? I think we call that empathy. It's not a crime. We
literally talk about it this week on Vibe Check because you noticed Elon Musk, they're starting to say empathy is a sin. You're too empathetic. Yeah.
There's no such thing. Yeah. I don't. So I think approaching those craft decisions with empathy and thinking about what the experience of that other person may be now, in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years. And if any of that gives you a prickle, then read it again. Send it to someone else and say, how would you feel if, right? This is the work, is to be as responsible as we can and do no harm or do as little harm as we possibly can. Yeah.
Nothing needs to be published today.
No, and time never made anything worse. The lack of time has made plenty of things worse.
Hello?
Time never made anything worse. Let it steep. Sit with it. Just, Yeah.
Well, with that, will you read a little? I know you're going to read a little bit, and then I'll read a little bit.
Oh, I would love that.
Okay.
Okay. Bring my glasses.
Don't leave your glasses, baby.
Oh, no. I'd be like, what is that word? Okay. So I'm going to read a little bit, and then Saeed is going to read a little bit. So the afterword of Dear Writer is a letter, and then it ends with a long list of pieces of writing that make me feel like I can go on. And one of the books in this list is this one. And so we're going to hear some poems from it. So this is the afterword. Dear writer, in harrowing times, and truly what times have not been harrowing, I sometimes ask myself, what can a poem do? A poem isn't a tourniquet when you're bleeding. It's not water when you're thirsty or food when you're hungry. A poem can't protect you from violence or from hate. It's difficult to create, to paint, to sculpt, to compose when your work feels like it's not enough. It can't do the real, tangible work of saving lives or making people safer. But art can do real, tangible, transformative work inside us. Think about the art that has become an important part of your life, the songs you love, the books you treasure, the films you can quote line for line. Art isn't extra. It's necessary. It's not life's decoration, but it's framework. This would be a good time to read or reread Audre Lorde's brilliant essay, Poetry is Not a Luxury. I know what some people would say, wow, she really thinks being an artist is as important as being a doctor, a farmer, a firefighter. Dear writer, I have been fed, healed, and saved by art. By words, this is not hyperbole. I'll lean on the wise words of Toni Morrison here. This is precisely the time when artists go to work. There is no time for despair, no place for self-pity, no need for silence, no room for fear. We speak, we write, we do language. That is how civilizations heal. In harrowing times, yes, all times, art is essential. If we can agree on that, then the next logical question is, how can we make it? How do we face the page, the canvas, the camera when the world is on fire? How do we write about war, genocide, climate grief, gun violence, abuse, famine, addiction? In other words, how do we write about life? In his introduction to the Best American Poetry 1997, from my day, James Tate wrote something I've been thinking about, quoting from, and literally putting at the top of my poetry syllabi ever since. And this is his quote. What we want from poetry is to be moved from where we now stand. We don't just want to have our ideas or emotions confirmed. Or if we do, then we turn to lesser poems. Poems that tell you killing children is bad, chopping down the rainforest is bad, dying is sad. A good poet would agree with all of those sentiments, but would also strive for an understanding beyond those givens. This is an essential reminder that our work as artists isn't to solve the world's problems, but to articulate the problems, not to answer every question, but to ask and keep asking. Only by engaging with ambiguity, with the unknown, with the slipperiness of human experience, can we make art that feels true. And now you.
I was getting nervous because I picked two very intense poems to read, and I told Maggie, you made me brave. I have to say, first of all, support public radio. Support public radio. Support your libraries and your places of education. That's obviously true here. But, Maggie and I are also collaborating on an anthology of art, poems, and short essays titled The People's Project. Because we wanted, we wanted to gather this energy. She's obviously already doing it in Dear Writer, but we were so moved, by the conversations we were having in the wake of the election. And it's not just about this election. It's about, the next few decades. But let's be real. A doctor, one of our community members, was detained and deported at our airport. Do you know they kept that woman at that airport? They were 36 hours. A PhD student at Tufts University was kidnapped in broad daylight in Somerville. You know what I mean? Like 10 minutes from my apartment. There is nowhere in America we could go and not be in America. And as someone who's lived all over the South, the Midwest, I think it's really important for us to remember this. This is the moment. This is it. And it breaks my heart because there are so many moments, but this is it. They are coming for us. They are coming for our neighbors. And so it is so important that we do what we would hope we would do, when we look back at other defining moments in history. Whatever you said you would have done then, baby, this is it. What you're doing is it, okay? All right. Grief number 913. I grieve the boy I killed and the country fashioned out of his bloodstains. I grieve that it was so easy, the knife lazy and confident invading him. This is what love feels like. I grieve that he believed me. Dumb animal, doe-eyed, ready-made gift. Just another border outlined in barbed wire and crime scene chalk. I grieve that, even then, I knew I'd do it again, 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 again. I grieve a continent. Nations united by the way terror turns me on, the hot instant between thrust and gasp. I want you, and I had you. Again, 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 I grieve my face onto the covers of history books. I grieve the descendants, dumb animals, dead-eyed, ready-made gifts. This is what love requires. I grieve that they believe me. Alive at the end of the world. Wait, no, I'm reading another one. I was like, wait, bitch, we going to dinner after this. I'm going to read this one instead. There's several poems in the book with the same title, Alive at the End of the World, but I'm going to read this because, one, being a Black queer person is one of the miracles of my life. But also, I don't want our fear to be the only thing we have in common. And I do think it's important for us to, I hope you had a good time tonight. I hope you, right? I hope you had a good time. Thank you. These spaces are also what we're fighting for. This is also a part of our citizenship, our America. And so I want us to remind ourselves what we're fighting for. That's part of the stakes too. Okay. I was like, girl. All right. Alive at the end of the world. The end of the world was a nightclub. Drag queens with machetes and rhinestoned machine guns guarded the red and impassable door on Friday nights. Oh, just to look at the crowd, all dressed up and swaying outside, made people want to yell the truth about themselves to anyone who'd listen. But no one heard. Oh, the end of the world was loud. The end of the world leaked music like radiation, and we loved the neon echo. even though it taunted us. Or maybe because it taunted us. Kids leaning out of windows hours after bedtime. Cab drivers debating fares at the curb just for an excuse to linger. Pastors who'd pause at the corner and vow that if they ever got inside, they'd burn it all down. Boston, thank you for coming out tonight. Let's give it up for Maggie Smith, dear writer.